Water looks like the safest business on Earth. Every home needs it. Every factory needs it. Every city collapses without it. So owning a water treatment plant sounds almost unbeatable. Buy dirty or salty water cheaply, clean it, and sell it forever to customers who cannot simply stop drinking. But that assumption hides the central contradiction of the industry. Water demand is essential, yet the plant that produces it can still become a financial disaster. The reason is simple. The real product is not water. The real product is reliability, and reliability requires enormous sunk costs, permanent regulatory approval, cheap financing, and a customer contract strong enough to keep paying even when demand falls. Imagine buying a machine that costs hundreds of millions of dollars, operates 24 hours a day, and sells its output for fractions of a cent per gallon. Now imagine that most of its costs do not decline when customers use less. The debt payment stays, the operators stay, the laboratory stays, the pumps, membranes, chemicals, security systems, backup generators, and compliance teams stay. A water plant may look like a volume business, but financially, it behaves more like a toll road combined with a power station and a hospital. It needs constant traffic, constant energy, and near perfect safety. One contamination event can destroy public trust. One failed permit can strand the asset. One poorly written contract can turn guaranteed demand into years of litigation. There are three main versions of this business. A drinking water plant takes water from a river, reservoir, lake, or aquifer and removes particles, microorganisms, chemicals, and other contaminants before sending it into a distribution network. A wastewater plant charges communities or industrial customers to clean sewage before discharge or reuse. A desalination or advanced recycling plant pushes water through membranes and additional treatment to create a drought-resistant supply. Each model has different technology, but the economics share the same foundation. The plant is valuable only when it is connected to a source on one side and a dependable customer network on the other. That connection is the first hidden barrier to entry. You cannot build the plant wherever land is cheapest. It must sit near feedwater, electricity, discharge routes, pipelines, and the customers who will ultimately pay. Water is heavy and expensive to move. A perfect plant in the wrong place is nearly worthless. This is why location creates both a monopoly and a trap. Once a city depends on a facility, competitors cannot easily build a second pipeline beside it. But the owner also cannot relocate the plant if regulation changes, the source becomes polluted, or demand shifts. The entry price depends on the technology and scale. But serious municipal facilities are not ordinary small businesses. The Carlsbad Desalination Project in California, including its plant, pipeline, financing, and system modifications, carried a total capital cost of just over $1 billion. That facility can deliver more than 50 million gallons per day. Conventional treatment can be cheaper, while small packaged plants can cost only a fraction of that amount, but the building itself is rarely the full bill. Intake structures, pumps, storage, laboratory equipment, transmission mains, land, environmental studies, insurance, reserves, and years of development costs can be just as important as the filtration system. Financing determines whether the economics survive. A plant with a 40-year physical life may be funded with long-term municipal bonds, government loans, bank debt, private equity, or a public-private partnership. Cheap debt lowers the cost of every gallon. Expensive debt can make an efficient plant uncompetitive before it opens. That is why water infrastructure often attracts pension funds and infrastructure investors. They are not searching for explosive growth. They are searching for long-lived assets with predictable cash flow. But predictability does not come from the water. It comes from the legal structure around the water. In a regulated utility model, the owner usually bills households and businesses through a fixed service charge plus a usage charge. The regulator reviews operating costs, capital investment, debt, and an allowed return. The business does not simply choose any price it wants. Its advantage is that approved infrastructure spending can be added to the rate base, allowing the utility to recover the investment over time and earn a regulated return. In 2025, American Water's regulated businesses reported about $4.7 billion in revenue and more than $1.1 billion in net income. But that result came from an entire network serving millions of customer connections, not from one isolated treatment building. The network, the meters, the pipes, the permits, and the customer relationship are where much of the value sits. A plant-only owner usually needs a different arrangement, a long-term offtake contract. Under this model, a government agency, utility, or industrial buyer agrees to purchase a minimum quantity of treated water at a predetermined formula. The strongest contracts contain a capacity payment that covers fixed costs and a variable payment that covers electricity, chemicals, and production. Without that fixed component, the owner carries a dangerous risk. If conservation programs succeed, rainfall returns, factories close, or population growth disappoints, the plant sells fewer gallons while its debt barely changes. This is the industry's strangest paradox. Society wants customers to conserve water, but conservation can weaken the finances of a plant built on high throughput. At full capacity, fixed costs are divided across millions of gallons. At half capacity, the same debt and staffing burden is spread across half as much output, pushing the unit cost sharply higher. Scale creates efficiency only when the capacity is actually used. The visible revenue is the water bill or treatment fee. The hidden revenue can include connection charges from new developments, bulk water contracts, fees for treating industrial wastewater, sales of reclaimed water for irrigation or cooling, and payments for guaranteed emergency capacity. Wastewater plants may also recover energy from biogas, sell usable biosolids where permitted, or avoid disposal costs by converting waste into a product. Grants, tax-exempt financing, and government subsidies can transform a marginal project into a viable one. But these should not be confused with operating profit. They are often the reason the economics work at all. On the cost side, energy is the monster that never sleeps. Pumps must move enormous volumes against pressure. Aeration systems feed oxygen into wastewater. Reverse osmosis membranes force water through microscopic barriers. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency says energy can represent roughly 25 to 30% of a water utility's operation and maintenance costs. Then come labor, chemicals, membrane replacement, sludge or brine disposal, laboratory testing, maintenance, insurance, cybersecurity, and depreciation. More advanced treatment improves water quality, but it can also increase energy use and chemical complexity. Regulation is not merely paperwork, it defines the product. A plant can produce crystal clear water and still fail if it misses a contaminant limit, reporting rule, or discharge permit. New standards can require new filters, new monitoring equipment, or an entirely new treatment stage. That creates opportunity for well-capitalized owners because weaker systems may need to sell. It also creates a permanent reinvestment obligation. The industry is protected by barriers to entry, but those barriers do not disappear after construction. The owner must keep paying to remain behind them. The clearest warning comes from Tampa Bay. The region planned a 25 million gallon per day seawater desalination plant through an ambitious public-private structure. Instead of a smooth handover, the project passed through contract changes, lawsuits, delays, and 2 private partner bankruptcies. The final major outlay reached about $158 million, including remediation. Even after the plant ultimately met its performance targets, its unit cost remained higher than originally projected because construction costs rose and customer demand was lower than expected. The technology eventually worked. The original financial assumptions did not. That is the essential lesson. A water plant can be technically successful and economically disappointing at the same time. Carlsbad shows the opposite approach. The San Diego County Water Authority agreed to purchase at least 48,000 acre-feet of desalinated water each year for 30 years at a predetermined price. The private developer carried major design, permitting, financing, construction, and operating risks, while the public buyer gained a reliable local supply. The contract included acceptance testing, quality requirements, performance protections, and remedies for default. At the end of the term, the authority received an option to buy the plant for $1. The water was expensive compared with older imported supplies, but the project was not selling cheap water. It was selling drought insurance and supply independence. That distinction made the premium politically and economically defensible. Orange County's groundwater replenishment system demonstrates another route to success. Use a waste stream as a resource and compare the project against the cost of the alternatives. The system now has capacity to produce up to 130 million gallons per day from highly treated wastewater. It reduces ocean discharge, protects groundwater from seawater intrusion, and uses far less energy than seawater desalination. Its value is not only the water it produces, it also includes avoided infrastructure, avoided imported water costs, and greater drought resilience. Successful water economics often appear only after every avoided cost is counted. So, is owning a water treatment plant a good business? Not by itself. A plant without a protected service territory, regulated customer base, or long-term purchase contract is a giant, fixed-cost machine exposed to political, technical, and demand risk. The best owners do not begin with the technology. They begin with the customer, the permit, the pipeline, and the financing. They secure the revenue before pouring the concrete. The strongest opportunities usually exist where water scarcity is rising, existing infrastructure is aging, regulation is forcing upgrades, and customers have no cheaper, reliable alternative. In the United States alone, official assessments have identified hundreds of billions of dollars in drinking water and clean water infrastructure needs over the next 2 decades. That creates an enormous market, but not easy money. The winners will be operators who can finance cheaply, run at high utilization, control energy costs, manage regulators, and structure contracts that separate fixed capacity payments from variable production costs. The final verdict is this: owning a water treatment plant can produce steady, infrastructure-style returns. But the moat is not the filter, the membrane, or the concrete. The moat is the legal right to serve a location and the contract that guarantees payment. Water may be essential, but essential demand does not guarantee profit. In this business, the investor who owns the plant owns the risk. The investor who owns the customer relationship owns the economics.